Today, we are sinking our teeth into the chilling tale of Count Dracula. But this isn't just the story you know from Bram Stoker's famous novel or the countless films that followed. This is the true origin story, where history and legend intertwine to create one of the most feared figures in all of folklore. Imagine a man so feared that his very name would become synonymous with terror. A man whose actions were so brutal, so ruthless, that they transcended history and entered into the realm of the supernatural. What if I told you that Dracula, the vampire, was inspired by a real person? A prince who lived in the 15th century, whose cruelty knew no bounds, and whose legacy still haunts the lands of Eastern Europe to this day. Stay with me as we unravel the dark and bloody tapestry of the real Dracula, Vlad the Impaler. This is the Dark History Project. Before we get started, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that like button. Thank you. Our story begins in the heart of Eastern Europe, in a region known as Wallachia, part of modern-day Romania. The year is 1431, a time when Europe was torn apart by wars, both religious and territorial. It was here, in a small fortress town called Sora, that Vlad III, later known as Vlad the Impaler, was born. Vlad was most likely born after his father settled in Transylvania in 1429. To understand Vlad's transformation into the figure that would inspire the legend of Dracula, we need to look at his upbringing. Vlad's father, Vlad II, was a member of the Order of the Dragon, a secretive order of knights sworn to defend Christianity against the Ottoman Turks. It was from this order that the family took their name, Draculesti, derived from the Latin word Draco, meaning dragon. And so young Vlad became known as Vlad Dracula, or son of the dragon. But this is where the story takes a dark turn. Vlad's childhood was far from ordinary. In 1442, when he was just a boy, he and his younger brother Radu were political hostages to the court of the Ottoman Sultan. This was a common practice at the time, intended to ensure the loyalty of their father to the Sultan. Vlad was held captive, a prisoner in a foreign land, subjected to harsh conditions and brutal punishments. This time in captivity would leave a deep and lasting scar on Vlad, shaping the man he would become. When Vlad finally returned to Wallachia, he was no longer the innocent boy who had been taken from his home. He was now a hardened young man driven by a burning desire for revenge and a thirst for power. In 1448, he seized the throne of Wallachia, beginning his first short reign as prince. But it was his second reign, beginning in 1456, that would cement his reputation as one of history's most brutal rulers. Vlad ruled with an iron fist, determined to maintain control over his fragmented and war-torn homeland. But his methods were far from conventional. Vlad became infamous for his use of impalement, a gruesome form of execution in which the victim was skewered on a sharp stake and left to die a slow and agonizing death. This was not just a method of punishment, but a tool of terror. Vlad's enemies, both real and imagined, were left to rot on the stakes as a warning to others. It is said that during one battle against the invading Ottoman army, Vlad ordered the impalement of 20,000 prisoners, creating a forest of corpses that stretched for miles. This sight was so horrifying that it reportedly caused the advancing Ottoman soldiers to turn back in fear. But Vlad's cruelty didn't stop there. He was known to be a master of psychological warfare, employing tactics that would make even the most hardened warriors tremble. Tales of his atrocities spread like wildfire throughout Europe, earning him the nickname Vlad the Impaler. Yet, to his people, Vlad was seen as a hero, a ruler who defended his land from invaders and brought order to a chaotic time. As time passed, the legend of Vlad the Impaler began to merge with local superstitions and folklore. The region of Transylvania, with its dark forests and towering mountains, was already steeped in tales of vampires and the undead. It wasn't long before Vlad's brutal reign became entwined with these stories, giving rise to the myth of Dracula, the bloodthirsty vampire. But how did this transformation from a historical figure to a creature of the night occur? The answer lies in the power of storytelling. In the centuries following Vlad's passing, his story was told and retold, each time becoming more embellished. By the 18th century, tales of vampires were widespread across Eastern Europe, and Vlad's name was often invoked as an example of a cursed soul who had risen from the grave to feed on the blood of the living. It was into this rich tapestry of myth and legend that Bram Stoker, an Irish writer, would tap when he wrote his novel Dracula in 1897. Stoker never visited Romania, but he was inspired by the accounts of Vlad the Impaler and the folklore surrounding vampires. He created Count Dracula, a character who embodied the fears and anxieties of the time, a figure both terrifying and fascinating, who continues to captivate audiences to this day. But what does the true story of Vlad the Impaler tell us about the human capacity for cruelty? Was Vlad a monster, or was he a man, shaped by the brutal realities of his time? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between. Vlad's legacy is a reminder of the thin line between heroism and tyranny, and how easily history can be transformed into legend. Today, the figure of Dracula is far removed from the historical Vlad the Impaler. He has become a symbol of horror, a character of fiction that transcends time and culture. But, as we've uncovered in this episode, behind every legend lies a kernel of truth. A real story that, though twisted by time, still echoes through the ages. So the next time you find yourself watching a vampire movie or reading a gothic novel, remember the true origin of Count Dracula. A prince, a warrior, a man whose name still inspires both fear and fascination. Thank you for being with us for this episode of the Dark History Project. Please help us out by liking this video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. We're available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else you can listen to podcasts. We hope you enjoyed it, and our next episode will come out soon. See you then.